What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming to you with another Inside Pitt report. This time, we are talking about the spring game draft. That's right, the Panthers back to the draft format. They're going to split their squad right down the middle. They did that today with the spring game draft, choosing between blue and gold teams. Super senior members of the team served as captains, and they got to select who they wanted on their teams. It was an interesting format. You start with a number one overall pick that was earned by the gold team through a convoluted method of rock, paper, scissors, and then a coin flip. But they got the first pick, and just the way it worked was, first of all, the seniors were all spread out, were already picked. They went to their teams before we got there for the draft, and they were divvied up in that way. Uh, you had the players who were listed as out or questionable or probable. Those guys were selected last. The offensive lines were split up, and we'll get into how they were split up in a second. But they were split up before the draft, and they were split up artificially, not through the draft. And then, when the actual picking came around, the Panthers, a team made the first pick, and then they selected a player from a certain position, and then the other side would have to run through both sides would have to run through all that position, every player who plays that position, select everyone until there were no more left, and then whoever's turn it was could select a new player from a different position, and the process would continue until things got all finished up. So, like I said, the gold team got their first pick, but we're gonna kind of go position by position, break down who got who, and what it means for this spring game. Remember, since you're splitting up this spring game like this, units are going to be screwed up. It's not going to be, ones on twos or twos on threes or anything like that. There's going to be a little less cohesiveness. It's going to be a little bit harder to tell, real meaningful things or take away some real meaningful things from this game about what the Panthers are going to look like in the fall. But it is fun. It's fun to see this team split up, see different guys play with different people, and just see what comes out on the other end. It'll be a fun day at Acrisure Stadium on Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. I'll be there. So for all the live coverage you need, make sure you check out si.com/college/Pittsburgh, and stay tuned to this YouTube channel for updates on the spring game and the practices that we have leading up to there. But for now, let's start at the very top. Let's start with the quarterbacks. First one overall taken was by the blue team, and that was Nate Yarnell. Yarnell will be joined by Christian Veyer, Julian Duggar, and David Lynch on the blue team. Gold team takes Eli Holstein, Ty Diefenbach, and Jake Franzel. Really notable, Eli Holstein was the second quarterback to be selected, period. Yarnell went first, then Holstein to the gold team, and then Christian Veyer, who I think we're all kind of assuming, we haven't seen a depth chart, but is the QB2 at this point in the year behind Nate Yarnell. But Holstein has been kind of pushing at that third job, and it seems like he's been real impressive. And hearing the endorsement of his gold team teammates who believe that he's the second best quarterback available when Veyer was up there, and I think that's really notable. That said, I'm giving the quarterbacks to the blue team. I think they have the better unit. I'm excited to see what Yarnell can do. Obviously, Veyer provides some depth. Holstein, I think, has loads of talent, but is young, and we'll see how he's adjusting to this new offense. But I'm also really excited to see what Julian Duggar can bring. I don't think he came in with a ton of hype as a three-star, three-star, two-star, kind of on the edge, depending on what service you look at. But he came in without a ton of hype, and we've heard some good things about him. Obviously, he has the athletic ability, but I've been impressed with his arm too. I think he's gotten more and more accurate with each day, and his footwork looks better. He's just showing a little bit more, serenity, calmness, composure, and I think that's to be expected, kind of a true freshman coming in and getting his first few practices in at the college level. All those young guys. I mean, Duggar and Holstein, both freshmen. Holstein, a redshirt freshman, albeit, but still hasn't played a college snap, just like Duggar hasn't. Excited to see those two guys, but I feel like Blue has the stronger unit in this sense, just of the quarterbacks that they got in the draft this year. Moving on to the running backs, blue team got Desmond Reed with their first pick. They'll add Montravius Lloyd and Derek Davis Jr. around him. Gold team had Daniel Carter assigned to him, a senior tailback captain for that gold team. Then they added Caleb Williams, I believe a walk-on. I don't think he's on scholarship. And then true freshman Juelz Goff. And I got to give this one to the gold team. I mean, Carter is pretty steady as a runner. And then Juelz Goff, I think, adds an element of speed that is going to be really useful in this game when maybe the lines are a little bit disjointed, when you don't have everyone there, and when you've you got someone who can use his speed to create his own holes and create something where there's not. I feel like that's really useful, really useful for the goal team in that sense. And then I'm excited to see what Montravius Lloyd and Derek Davis have done for the are able to do for the blue team. Excuse me, but uh, I think those guys are more power backs. Davis has got a little bit of speed, but I think still coming along as a tailback. So I'm interested to see what he can do. But I feel like Gold really does have the stronger unit here. We've heard good things about Desmond Reed, but we've heard there's some little things, some ball security issues that maybe came up earlier in the year. We'll see if he has those addressed at this point in the spring. Moving on to wide receiver, excuse me. Blue team, Kanate Mumpfield headlines the group. Next up, Cameron Monteiro was the second wide receiver taken, which I think is pretty notable as well. That's a true freshman. And then elsewhere on the blue team, Zion Fowler L, Lamar Seymour, and Devin Whitlock. Gold team gets first overall pick, Kenny Johnson, Jake McConaughey, who was assigned to the gold team, Thaddeus Shaw, Dejon Reynolds, and Izzy Polk. I gave this one to the gold team again. I love the explosive playability that Kenny Johnson brings. I think Reynolds and McConaughey are real solid, just kind of all around players. Reynolds obviously a starter, and I think has a lot of potential in this offense. And then Izzy Polk, a guy we heard a lot about last year. The Panthers were pretty desperate to get him on the field. Didn't find many opportunities for him. Didn't want to burn that red shirt. I think this could be a year that he could show you some things, especially with a wide receiver group that is deep but expanding its need for players with the pace that this offense moving at. So gold team takes this one. I think has the stronger group of receivers on paper, but there are a couple interesting names, especially with Zion Fowler L and Lamar Seymour on the other side of things. Those are two guys who are pretty explosive athletes, and I think could really break some loose. And then Monteiro, let's see what he's got. Like Eli Holstein gets a vote of confidence from the captains of the blue team, being picked second overall. Mumfield was assigned to the blue team. Kenny Johnson went first overall, and then Monteiro was the second overall pick of the draft. So eager to see what he can do as well. At tight end, you got Jake Overman, Jake Renda, and Cole Mitchell on the blue team. Gold, Gavin Bartholomew, Josh Altsman, Adam Howanitz on the gold team. Gavin Bartholomew, it's such a small group of players, and you really only use one or two on any given possession. But I think Gavin Bartholomew really makes this one for the gold team. Seems like a pretty easy decision there. Best player in the group, one of the better players on the team, and he's probably going to carry this group. But don't sleep on Jake Renda. Apparently a very good pass catcher from what we've heard, and a good route runner. Jake Overman had some muscle in the blocking game, and has been improving as a route runner as well. So it's an interesting group, a group that they have a lot of confidence in, and a lot of that I think they've been pleasantly surprised at. A group with some diversity and some guys who are really growing, that the Panthers are excited about as a whole. Along the offensive line, and like I said, this group had been split up a little bit. The gold team kind of gets the quote unquote first team, unofficial first team. You can see that this is kind of pretty clearly broken up between guys who are first or second teamers mostly, and then guys on the blue team are mostly second, third team guys, more likely. There are a couple backups in there, but a lot more guys who are going to be further down the depth chart. I think Pitt was kind of trying to create as even a matchup as possible and keep the lines somewhat cohesive. There are some injuries here. We'll get to those injuries in a second. I'll read those off at the end of the video. The notable names that are missing from the spring game that won't play that we got confirmed today. But on the blue side of things, they're anchored by Tay Ray, Brody Rife, Terrence Enos, Matt Altsman, Ryan Coretta, Moritz Schormanzer, Isaiah Montgomery, and George French. Then the gold team gets Jackson Brown, Jason Collier Jr., Lyndon Cooper, BJ Williams, Matt Matronsky, Ryan Baer, and Grayson Rife. I'm really interested in this gold group, especially seeing what Lyndon Cooper, a guy that we have not heard much about all spring long. And then obviously BJ Williams, I want to see how he's grown as well. Those are the two guys I'm really looking out for the most. Cooper, just because of his positional versatility. Believe he's going to play some center in the spring game. I'd assume he'll move around a little bit. And then Williams, obviously a really promising young prospect, a guy who started a bunch of games last year. And Jackson Brown, been hearing a lot more good things about him as well this spring. So I am interested to see kind of how far he's come along. He's a transfer coming in last year, didn't see the field very often, if at all. So this is real. This is a piece of game action that we'll finally get to see what he's bringing to the table. Moving over to the defensive side of things, we'll start up front. Defensive ends. Blue team gets Nate Matlick, Jimmy Scott, Maverick Ratio, and Zach Zollers. And then the gold team gets Dayon Hayes, Sincere Edwards, David Ojiegbe, and Antonio Kamen. I gave this one to the blue, but the more I look at it, I really think that the gold team has some dudes here. I think Matlick and Jimmy Scott. Matlick, I think, is going to be a real stud in this defense. Jimmy Scott is a guy who's coming along, but we haven't seen a whole lot of on the field. But meanwhile, Dayon Hayes, Sincere Edwards, those are two pretty big headliners. Those are pretty good dudes. Hayes obviously expected to be kind of the leading sack guy, the big star of this defensive line. And then you got Edwards, who we heard earlier this week is really pushing for that second string spot in kind of a wide open defensive end competition. So between him and Ojiegbe, the Clemson transfer, a former 4-star recruit, there's a lot of talent on that gold side of the ball, and I'm really eager to see what they can do. I feel like they are kind of the better unit of defensive ends. Defensive tackle, moving on to there. Blue team gets Bam Brema, Nick James, Isaiah Neal, Nakai Johnson. Gold team gets Will King, Sean Fitzsimmons, Elliot Donald, and Francis Brew. Brew is probable for the spring game, so is Nakai Johnson. But we are awaiting final word for them. We won't know until game day. Fitzsimmons is also probable, so we will see. With that kind of in mind, I gave DT to Blue. I think they have the better unit there. I think Nick James, we've heard a lot of great things about him. Former 4-star recruit, had all the big-time offers, Alabama, Georgia, on and on and on. And I know he was just kind of buried on the depth chart at Indiana before transferring to Pitt. And then you got Neal. Obviously, his pedigree is pretty well known. He was the highest-rated recruit in that 2023 class. And then Nakai Johnson, people real excited about his twitch and what he's going to be able to bring as a more athletic and quicker defensive tackle, even if he's maybe slightly undersized. So, I mean, assuming everyone is healthy in this group, I'm going with Blue. Want to see Fitzsimmons have a big day. I'm really excited about him. Hope Brew plays. We've heard great things about him as well, but it's kind of a wait and see thing. We're going to actually have to see who suits up on Saturday afternoon. Stepping back a little bit to linebacker, we got Brandon George, Dylan Bennett, Rasheem Biles, and Abe Ibrahim on the blue team. Gold team, Luke Del Guadio, Braylon Lovelace, Jeremiah Marcelin, Kyle Lewis, Nick Lappy, and Drew Foster. I gave this one to the gold team, and it seems pretty obvious here. I mean, you've got a really nice first line there of Lovelace at the probably in the middle, Jeremiah Marcelin probably moving to the outside. I could see those guys flipping just to give Lovelace, a guy who has some experience, and a guy who's probably going to play Mike when he's in, some experience at that middle spot. And then Kyle Lewis is a pretty bona fide outside linebacker, probably a starter heading into 2024. So I'm going to give that one to the gold. Cornerback, blue team, Javonte Royal, Rylan Gandy, Nigel Maynard. Gold team, Rashad Battle, Noah Bigelow, and Tamarian Crumpley. I like that blue group a lot. I mean, I think there are a couple guys in here who will be battling for starting spots, but I'm going with that blue group of Royal, Gandy, and Maynard. Gandy, obviously a bona fide starter. We're going to see him starting week 1, barring an unforeseen, injury or circumstance. And then Royal, I love his length. He's an experienced guy, still kind of in the middle of a transition back to defensive back, but a guy who has a couple takeaway stickers on his helmet. Seems like he has a nose for the ball. And so I'm going to give this one to the corners. I'm interested to see, though, Rashad Battle as he kind of comes back from what ended up being a season-ending injury last year. Want to see him in action. He seemed like he was poised to be on the 2 deep, if not, be a major contributor last year before going down with an injury. So it'll be cool to see him back on the field and what he's able to do once he steps on there. At safety, the blue team got Donovan McMillan, Jesse Anderson, and John Glenn. The gold team got PJ O'Brien, Javon McIntyre, and Madam Maffa. The gold team objectively has the better unit here, I think, just because you've got 2 experienced guys in O'Brien and McIntyre back there, 2 guys who have played a bunch of football together with each other specifically. But man, that blue group can really hit, and they are really going to light some guys up. McMillan, the surest tackler on the team, and then Jesse Anderson, who just brings so much emotion and so much juice to every game. I like the blue group more, kind of personally, but I think that gold group is really, really, really solid, and I gave it to them. Wrapping up with the specialist group, blue team got Ben Sauls, Cam Guess, and Franco Fernandez Enjo, and the gold team got Nile Upada Hiyayaula. I believe I pronounced that right. The transfer from UConn, long snapper, and then Sam Carpenter is their place kicker, and Caleb Junko is the punter. I'm going with the blue group. Ben Sauls kind of takes the cake here. Love that they got 2 kickers as well, so I give that to the blue group. Caleb Junko, kind of a big game for him. I don't know how much punting or how much special teams work they are actually going to do, but would love to see a good day from Caleb Junko after a rough kind of up and down season last year. So lots of good names, lots of interesting players and interesting spots, and I'm going to be really eager to see how some of them make out in this game. That said, I did tell you we'd get to some of the injury news, and so I'll read off some of the names, the big names in particular, that will not be playing in this game. Defensive end Nate Temple has been shut down for the season, so obviously he will not play. Ryan Jacoby dealing with a knee injury and still kind of recovering from that, so he has been sidelined for all of 2024 spring practices. Those are 2 things that we've been over, but some newer names. Linebacker Solomon Shields has been practicing for a while, won't play in this game. Safety Cruz Brookins, that's a real disappointing name. I think everyone was really excited to see what he could do because we have been talking him up all during spring ball, and I can tell you that the hype was real. Guys really believe in this guy, and for good reason. He can play. Running back Rodney Hammond will not play. Raphael Williams, the receiver, transfer from San Diego State and Western Carolina. Heard a ton of good things about him. He had been playing pretty well, so that one's a downer. Cornerback Tana Lynham won't play either. Was excited about him, but haven't seen much of him. Haven't heard much of him this spring either. We'll have to wait until fall camp. Key Thompson, the linebacker transfer from Ohio, he has not practiced all spring. He will not play either in the spring game. Terrence Moore is out. Dorian Ford and Branson Taylor also out along the offensive line. So Moore and Taylor, 2 veterans, 2 guys who are almost guaranteed locks to start. They will not play in this game. Another disappointing one, Jordan Bass, a young linebacker. Just wanted to see how he's progressed, what he's looking like now, but we won't get to see him. Wide receiver CJ Lee, another Western Carolina transfer. Him and Shane Nabuko will not play either. Zach Crothers and defensive back Shadarian Harrison. Crothers is defensive end. Those guys will not play either. They are out for this game as well. So bunch of names off this list. Pat Narduzzi had alluded to the fact that they are maybe not as healthy at this point in the year as they would like to be, but he likes how they are kind of bringing an edge and bringing a toughness to the room right now in 2 spring practices. So he'll live with it, and he's going to enjoy this scrimmage either way. I hope you do too if you're going down to the North Shore. Should be a nice day this weekend at Acrisure Stadium for the 2024 Blue Gold game. I'll be there to deliver you live coverage from Acrisure Stadium. Make sure you're following along with Inside the Panthers on YouTube. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Inside the Panthers, and then follow all our reporting at InsideThePanthers.com. Appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you next time.